There is a philosopher whose ideas were so ahead of their time that people are still afraid to speak them aloud. He claimed that we do not know ourselves. Our consciousness is only the tip of the iceberg, while beneath it rages an ocean of dark forces. Decades later, Freud called this the unconscious and became famous. Jung developed it into a theory of shadows and archetypes. Adler turned it into a theory of inferiority complexes. But the source is the same. Friedrich Nietzsche, the mad genius who cracked the code of the human psyche. Today, you will delve into 11 psychological revelations that changed the science of the soul forever. Resentment, will to power, self-deception, amor fati. These concepts explain why you do what you do without even realizing the true reasons. Get comfortable. Our journey is about to begin. Part 1. Understanding resentment, how deep anger messes with your mind. Nietzsche was spot on when he explored the nature of resentment. We're not dealing with ordinary anger here. This is a slow-cooking, poisonous feeling that alters how you look at the world and shifts your values. Understanding resentment is like shining a light on one of the more hazardous quirks in our human nature. Let's break it down. It all starts with feeling frustrated. This happens when there's something you want or need, but you hit a wall. Maybe you're stuck in a financial rut, left out socially, or facing some kind of physical challenge. The tricky part is, you can't just solve it directly. You're left spinning your wheels, maybe because you lack the power, skills, or the perfect moment to act. Next up is the stewing, what psychologists call rumination. You're stuck replaying the unfairness over and over in your mind, pinpointing who to blame and what exactly sets you off. Unlike a healthy form of anger that urges some action before moving on, resentment hangs around, leaving you in a constant state of bitterness. It's like you're dwelling in that hurt, almost as though you're hooked on it. When you can't confront the situation in reality, your mind goes wild, dreaming up scenarios where you get even. This is the third stage, where your imagination takes over, crafting grandiose plans of revenge where you come out on top, and those against you are defeated. These mental fantasies might give you a temporary high, but they end up making things worse by keeping you stuck in a distorted reality. Eventually, you might start flipping your beliefs. You convince yourself that being weak is actually a moral high point, and that power is something to be scorned. This is a pivotal moment because a mere coping mechanism morphs into a full-on belief system. The person feeling powerless convinces themselves it's better to be weak than strong. Suffering is seen as noble, being shy is equated with wisdom, and being powerless is regarded as purity. The mental script flips. They might still be powerless, but they feel morally superior to those in power. It's a moral victory even if they're losing the practical battle. And this isn't just an old concept. It's visible today. Just look at the phenomenon of cancel culture on social media. Many people who don't feel powerful in their lives grab a sense of moral superiority by calling others out online. They can't match the success of the high flyers directly, so they paint success as corrupt and failure as virtuous. Or consider the therapy room, where some individuals are so wrapped up in their victimhood, they resist the idea of moving forward. Political movements, too, sometimes focus on taking successful individuals down rather than elevating the less fortunate. These patterns all echo the psychological dynamic Nietzsche identified long ago. So, How do you move past resentment? It begins with awareness. Ask yourself, am I more focused on what others have done to me than on what I can do for myself? Do I secretly rejoice when a successful person hits a rough patch? Am I more comfortable seeing myself as a victim than as someone capable of action? Do I turn my weaknesses into points of pride and my mistakes into moral stances? These questions can help you figure out if resentment is coloring your thinking. Part 2. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power is a major theme in his psychological theories. But it's not just about ruling nations or using force. Instead, it's this inherent force that pushes us into action. Understanding this concept is like unlocking the secret engine behind why people do what they do. Freud, later on, came up with this idea of libido, which is in the same ballpark. But while Freud focused on sexual energy, Nietzsche was more interested in creativity and realizing one's potential. Think of the will to power as this innate drive to expand ourselves, overcome obstacles, and gain mastery over both our environment and ourselves. Pretty much everything we do can be seen as a manifestation of this drive. If someone's hitting the books, they're conquering ignorance. When they're making art, they're bringing order out of chaos and giving it meaning. Even when they're networking and making friends, they're transitioning from isolation to finding purpose. And sacrifices? Those might just be about mastering their basic urges at a deeper level. Usually, this drive is doing its thing without us even noticing. We're often unaware of what's truly motivating us because these underlying impulses operate on autopilot. Take someone who claims they're just being nice. They might actually be driven by a need to feel superior. Or a truth seeker might be using knowledge to gain leverage over others. Someone chasing success may be fueled by an old desire to prove their worth to a dismissive parent. These behaviors are typically directed by hidden power drives, with the reasoning coming in after the fact. Today, neuroscience backs up Nietzsche's thoughts on subconscious motivations. Studies show that our brains initiate actions before we're even aware we've decided anything. What we believe to be conscious decisions mostly boil down to our brains rationalizing already set actions. Behavioral economics demonstrates how supposed logical choices often stem from emotional and subconscious influences. Meanwhile, social psychology reveals that a large part of our behavior aims for status, influence, and control, even when we think it stems from noble goals. All these points support Nietzsche's idea that the will to power is the main force behind human actions. In therapy, tuning into this drive can totally change how we deal with psychological issues. Instead of viewing symptoms as problems to eliminate, we can see them as the will to power slightly off course. So, depression might be that drive turned inward, avoiding the external world. Anxiety. It could be an attempt to manage outcomes by fretting over them. Addiction might represent the struggle for control over emotional states through substances. In each case, the aim is to redirect the will to power to healthier outlets rather than shutting it down. The ultimate expression of the will to power, according to Nietzsche, is self-overcoming. It's about transcending your current limitations and evolving into something greater. It requires courage, since it means stepping out of your comfort zone and venturing into new territories. It demands persistence because it's focused on lasting growth, not just immediate comfort. But the reward is genuine empowerment and self-discovery. When you match your conscious goals with this inner drive for power, you're unstoppable. Part 3. Fooling Ourselves, the Mystery Within. Nietzsche flipped the script with a pretty radical idea. We're not nearly as clued in about ourselves as we like to think. He figured that what we actually know, our consciousness, is just the surface layer, like the tiny visible part of an iceberg, with the real bulk lurking in the depths of our subconscious. When Nietzsche first suggested this, folks believed that pure reason and logic could give us a complete understanding of ourselves, so his idea really shook things up. He highlighted how we often trick ourselves into believing things about our actions, desires, and identities that might not be true. He put forward some crafty ways our brains pull the wool over our eyes. For starters, we often come up with logical explanations for things we've already done, even if our true motives are tucked away under the surface. Say someone breaks up with their partner and claims it's because of moral reasons, while deep down they're just scared of intimacy. Or a person lands a job and insists it's about making a difference, when really they're just looking to win approval back home. These stories we weave feel real because our minds help us tidy them up. Then there's our tendency to point fingers at others. We project our hidden flaws and traits onto them. Picture someone constantly accusing others of being selfish. It's likely they're the selfish one. Or if you know someone who sees manipulation everywhere, chances are they've got manipulating down to an art themselves. We offload our unwanted qualities onto others to maintain our self-esteem. Nietzsche also talked about noble self-deception, where we paint ourselves as the heroes of our own tales. A business owner might claim they're all about creating opportunities, but maybe they're really just exploiting their workers. A parent might believe they're acting in the kid's best interest while they're actually being controlling. An activist could insist they're fighting for justice when they're really driven by personal vendettas. We don't do this consciously. It's our mind's way of protecting us from harsh realities. Modern psychology backs up Nietzsche's claims. Research shows we twist information to keep up a flattering self-image. There's stuff like the fundamental attribution error, where we blame outside stuff for our mistakes, yet praise ourselves for successes. Confirmation bias has us only noticing what fits our beliefs, and the Dunning-Kruger effect explains how those with the least skill often see themselves as experts. These quirks stop us from seeing ourselves clearly. In therapy, this is huge. Regular therapy might assume that knowing yourself leads to change, but Nietzsche was onto something bigger. Most people sidestep deep self-awareness because it wrecks their narratives. The goal isn't to erase all self-deception, that's unrealistic and probably not beneficial, but to confront the whoppers we tell ourselves. Nietzsche called this intellectual honesty, the courage to face uncomfortable truths. It's about questioning our motives, scrutinizing our habits, and fessing up when we're off base, all while getting comfortable with not having all the answers. To crank up self-awareness, try jotting down your stated reasons for doing things and then revisiting them to see if you've been lying to yourself. Pause for a sec. Why did I really make that decision? What would my critics say about my motives? Are there behaviors I've been ignoring? The idea isn't to bash yourself, but to genuinely look inward to become truer to yourself and gain mental clarity. Once you stop pulling the wool over your own eyes, you're in a better spot for making real changes. Part 4. let's take a closer look at Nietzsche's fascinating idea about how people grow psychologically. Even before psychology really became a thing, Nietzsche put forward a concept that kind of foreshadowed what we'd call psychological development today. In his work, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he describes three big shifts that people go through as they become their true selves: the camel, the lion, and the child. Understanding these shifts can seriously help you see where you are on your growth journey and what might come next. First up is the camel stage. This is like carrying a heavy weight. At this point, individuals take on the values and expectations that society, their family, and traditions hand them. It's like asking yourself, what's the toughest thing I can handle? People here willingly shoulder responsibilities, roles, and societal norms without really questioning much. This stage is crucial for initial socialization and learning the ropes of life. You'll often see kids and young adults in this camel phase as they soak up and follow the wisdom and rules they've been given. They learn discipline, how to stick to their responsibilities, and how to work with others. It's about building a strong work ethic, forming moral principles, and learning to delay immediate pleasures. Basically, they learn how to take on adult duties and contribute to society. The downside, if someone stays stuck here, they might wind up as part of Nietzsche's herd, always needing guidance and approval from others without ever developing their own beliefs. Next comes the lion stage, which is all about tearing things down. In this phase, people begin to question the values they've grown up with and the authorities over them. They start wondering, why should I follow these rules? This stage is characterized by a rebellion against what's been taught and accepted. It's the kind of thing you see during a teenager's rebellion, or maybe even a midlife crisis. At this point, individuals start to realize that the teachings they've received might not truly reflect who they are. It's a phase of challenging, doubting, and rejecting old pathways. Instead of following the "you must," they start declaring, "I will." While this stage is key to developing independence and coming up with personal values, getting stuck here can lead to being rebellious for its own sake, without building something constructive in place of what's been rejected. Lastly, there's the child stage. This embodies the spirit of creativity that embraces life positively. Here, people move beyond simply following or rebelling and start to create their own values and meanings in a state of innocence, playfulness, and creativity. At this stage, individuals blend the discipline learned as a camel with the independence discovered as a lion into a smooth mix. They can carve out their own values while still being contributing members of society, welcoming life with enthusiasm, and remaining true to themselves. Interestingly, modern psychology kind of supports Nietzsche's stages. Theories like those by Erik Erikson and Lawrence Kohlberg show similar patterns, initially conforming, rebelling during the teenage years, and then finding mature integration later on. Plus, concepts from spiral dynamics about evolving consciousness through traditional, modern, and postmodern stages also vibe with what Nietzsche was talking about. All in all, Nietzsche was one of the first to clearly outline this growth path with such insight and understanding. In the fifth part, we're exploring an idea called amor fati, which is all about loving your fate. It's all about deeply accepting everything that's happened in your life, including the rough patches like pain and failure. This doesn't mean you just sit back and let things happen. It's about embracing everything, even the tough stuff, because these experiences have helped you grow. This way of thinking changes how you view your challenges and helps you stop beating yourself up over past regrets. We often look back and wish things had played out differently, especially when times were tough. But amor fati turns that thinking upside down. It challenges you to see how even the not-so-great moments have made you who you are today. Instead of dwelling on past mistakes, you start seeing them as important lessons. Instead of being stuck in bitterness over pain, you learn to appreciate how it has made you more resilient and kind. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect or acting as if bad things never happened. It's about completely changing how you view your life's journey to alter its impact. You're no longer trapped in the past. Instead, you're actively shaping your future. A crucial part of amor fati is distinguishing between what happened and what it means to you. While you can't change what's occurred, you can decide how those events affect you. For example, what once felt like an unbearable loss might have revealed strengths you didn't know you had. A difficult breakup might have shown you what qualities you truly value in a partner. Losing a job might have nudged you towards your true passion. Seeing potential opportunities hidden within what once seemed like disasters helps you build both emotional resilience and independence. Research supports this. Studies indicate that individuals who find meaning after going through trauma often come out stronger, with a deeper appreciation for life, better relationships, and an improved sense of purpose. Amor fati isn't just a concept for after you've been through hard times. It's something you can start practicing actively. Instead of just hoping personal growth happens naturally, you can make an intentional choice to embrace your journey. This idea is also being applied in therapy and personal development. Therapists might use an amor fati exercise to help people reframe their victim stories or regrets. Here's how it works. First, think of a significant negative experience from your past. Then, list how that experience helped you become stronger, wiser, or more compassionate. Next, imagine what your life would be like if that experience had never taken place. Finally, ask yourself if you'd truly want to erase that experience, given what you know now. Many people realize that despite the pain, they wouldn't want to erase the past because it's a big part of who they are now. This realization is incredibly liberating. Remember, amor fati doesn't mean you're grateful for suffering or think pain is good. It's about taking control of the meaning you give to your experiences. While you may not have control over the events themselves, you can decide what they signify to you. Fully embracing this empowers you, making you emotionally tough. External circumstances can't break you because you've learned to transform any situation into a source of growth. That's true psychological freedom. Part 6. How Nietzsche influenced Freud's thinking. The birth of the unconscious. Freud may have famously claimed he never read much of Nietzsche to avoid claims of influence, but the parallels in their theories are hard to dismiss. Nietzsche seemed to have predicted a lot of Freud's revolutionary ideas about the unconscious, repression, and what drives our behavior beneath the surface. Exploring their connection shows how Nietzsche's thoughts on psychology laid the groundwork for psychoanalysis and depth psychology, even though he was exploring the unconscious before Freud made it widely known. Nietzsche figured out early on that what we are aware of is just a sliver of our mental existence. He pointed out that we barely know ourselves and that our consciousness often comes up with intricate justifications for our hidden urges. This lines up perfectly with Freud's idea of the mind being divided into the conscious ego, the unconscious ID, and the moralizing superego. Nietzsche also noticed that underneath our civilized exterior lie raw instincts and drives that guide us more than we like to admit. He recognized how our minds steer clear of certain thoughts and feelings, a precursor to what Freud called repression, a way to avoid psychological pain. Nietzsche also touched on the concept of sublimation, where basic urges transform into cultural achievements. He saw that art, philosophy, and even morality stem from the same primal drives at the core of human behavior. For example, artists convert sexual tension into creative works, philosophers pursue power through seeking truth, and moral crusaders turn personal grievances into social reform efforts. Nietzsche observed how society thrives on these redirected energies. On top of that, Nietzsche was ahead of his time in recognizing the significance of dreams, fantasies, and imagination in our psychology, ideas Freud would dive into later. Nietzsche saw how dreams reveal concealed desires and conflicts that are too threatening to face directly. He noted how people construct elaborate fantasies to compensate for real-life letdowns, and understood that our symptoms and actions often have hidden meanings begging to be interpreted. These insights became cornerstones of psychoanalytic theory, and Nietzsche laid the foundations for depth psychology before it was even a concept. The roots of psychological defense mechanisms are also found in Nietzsche's work. He highlighted how people project unwanted traits onto others, rationalize their behavior with high-minded reasons, and channel their emotions into more acceptable avenues. He grasped that our minds use complex tactics to defend against uncomfortable truths. He saw how people can get trapped in stories they fabricate and live out their own deceits. Freud and his followers later formalized these observations into a comprehensive framework for understanding ego defenses. But Nietzsche set the stage. Above all, Nietzsche believed that healing happens when we bring our unconscious drives into the light of awareness. He thought that much suffering comes from not understanding these inner forces, and that the key is to make them conscious, allowing for deliberate control instead of being unknowingly controlled by them. This aligns directly with the goals of psychoanalytic therapy. Nietzsche even applied this idea to his life, using his writings as a form of self-analysis long before Freud advocated the talking cure. Part 7. Jung absorbed way more from Nietzsche than Freud ever did, and he didn't hold back from saying so. Carl Jung spent years diving deep into Nietzsche's works, even running long seminars on Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The fingerprints of Nietzsche's ideas are all over Jung's major concepts like the shadow, individuation, and the union of opposites. This connection highlights how Nietzsche's philosophy helped shape one of the most pivotal therapeutic approaches of the 20th century. The shadow concept, where Jung talks about the hidden and suppressed aspects of ourselves, clearly has its origins in Nietzsche. Nietzsche understood that humans have conflicting desires and saw value in acknowledging those darker aspects instead of suppressing them. He spoke about harmonizing our Dionysian side, those wild, instinctive, and creative energies that society often tries to stifle. Jung's shadow work revolves around recognizing and integrating parts of ourselves that we tend to overlook or suppress. Nietzsche also laid down the basic ideas for what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming true to oneself rather than conforming to others' expectations. He emphasized the importance of creating personal values rather than merely accepting society's norms. Nietzsche saw genuine psychological growth as moving beyond simply conforming or rebelling to discover a personal path. Jung captured this in his idea of individuation, which involves setting oneself apart but also staying connected to the community. Both Nietzsche and Jung realized that authenticity requires courage and continuous effort. It's about being comfortable standing alone when necessary, while remaining part of the larger world. Another thing Jung picked up from Nietzsche was the idea of embracing opposing sides. Nietzsche recognized that psychological wholeness involves accepting conflicting traits rather than favoring one over the other. We all contain goodness and badness, strength and weakness, joy and sorrow, and the power to create and destroy. The goal isn't to eliminate the bad parts, but to integrate them meaningfully. Jung's concept of the transcendent function, which bridges the conscious and unconscious, echoes this notion. Both thinkers rejected straightforward either-or, thinking in favor of more nuanced both-and solutions. Nietzsche's theories on different mindsets also influenced Jung's typological framework. Nietzsche distinguished between noble and slave mindsets, active and reactive individuals, creators and conformists. He recognized that people have distinct psychological outlooks that shape their perceptions and responses to the world. Jung built on this by developing his theories on psychological types, like introversion versus extroversion, thinking versus feeling, sensing versus intuition. Both understood that mental health isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. Rather, there are unique ways suited to distinctive personalities. The key is to cultivate your inherent strengths instead of trying to mold yourself into something else. Jung's approach to therapy reflects Nietzsche's influence as well. Rather than just focusing on problems and symptoms, Jung emphasized growth, creativity, and self-discovery. He saw therapy as a journey towards becoming fully yourself rather than merely dealing with issues. This aligns with Nietzsche's emphasis on personal creation and self-betterment. They both believed true psychological healing meant uncovering and pursuing your unique potential, not just trying to conform to societal norms. Their focus was on helping people become extraordinary, not just well-adjusted. The concept of the wounded healer, central to Jung's ideas, actually harks back to Nietzsche. Nietzsche thought that suffering could give rise to wisdom, and that our deepest injuries often morph into our greatest strengths. He proposed that many thinkers and creators emerge stronger from personal chaos. Jung expanded on this by shaping it into a cornerstone for therapy. By recognizing and confronting their own emotional scars, therapists can use these experiences as a powerful tool for healing. Both Nietzsche and Jung recognized that true psychological development frequently involves confronting and navigating through our inner shadows. They saw crises as windows of opportunity and considered breakdowns as stepping stones to breakthroughs. In Part 8, we explore how Nietzsche's philosophy influenced Alfred Adler's approach to individual psychology. Among those psychologists inspired by Nietzsche, Adler stands out for directly incorporating Nietzsche's ideas into his work. He openly acknowledged Nietzsche's influence, especially the concept of the will to power, which Adler used as a foundation for his theories. Adler viewed this concept as a drive to overcome feelings of inferiority and the desire for superiority, which he saw as crucial to understanding personality development and psychological issues. Adler's idea of the inferiority complex has its roots in his study of Nietzsche. He recognized that everyone starts life feeling dependent and weak. Kids, being smaller and less capable than adults, naturally feel inferior. Addressing these feelings through personal effort and growth is the healthy path forward. However, some people struggle with this and remain stuck in feelings of inadequacy, creating a complex where they view themselves as perpetually not good enough. This can lead them to either give up or try to compensate through unhealthy means of seeking power. Nietzsche's ideas on resentment also influenced Adler's thoughts on how inferiority can spiral into problems. If people can't overcome their limitations directly, they might seek power in indirect ways, like playing the victim to manipulate others through guilt, criticizing others to feel superior, or acting as martyrs, gaining power via suffering. These are flawed expressions of the will to power, reinforcing feelings of inferiority. Adler embraced Nietzsche's emphasis on individual uniqueness and self-creation. Unlike Freud, who suggested that our personalities are heavily influenced and shaped by early childhood, Adler believed in our capacity to choose how we face life's challenges and shape who we become. This reflects Nietzsche's idea that we are not defined by our past, but by our potential to chart our course. Adler called this the creative self, which means shaping our actions based on personal goals and values. This was a novel idea during a time dominated by biological and environmental determinism. Adler's concept of social interest also has its roots in Nietzsche's philosophy. While many see Nietzsche as promoting sheer individualism, he actually acknowledged humans as social creatures who need community. Adler expanded on this, suggesting that true psychological health involves balancing personal growth and societal contribution. It's not about overpowering others, but discovering how to contribute uniquely to the greater good. This ties back to Nietzsche's ideal of a superior person who creates values that benefit not just themselves, but humanity as a whole. True greatness lies in uplifting others, not pushing them down. Adler's therapeutic methods emphasize empowerment and encouragement, focusing on strengths rather than dwelling on problems. This reflects Nietzsche's focus on strength and potential. Adlerian therapy encourages clients to identify hidden strengths and devise strategies to overcome obstacles, concentrating on potential achievements instead of limitations. This approach paved the way for modern positive psychology, which emphasizes people's strengths. Both Nietzsche and Adler believed that progress stems from building on inner strengths rather than erasing weaknesses. A central Adlerian practice is the lifestyle assessment, where therapists help clients uncover subconscious patterns influencing their behavior. Nietzsche believed that we don't really know ourselves all that well, and part of growing up mentally and emotionally is figuring out those hidden parts of ourselves. Adler developed a few methods to help identify these parts by digging into our early memories, understanding family dynamics, and analyzing behavior. The goal is to help people realize how they're living and decide whether they want to continue on the current path or make changes. This level of self-awareness empowers people to take control of their lives, rather than being unknowingly steered by habits that have formed over time. In essence, it moves them from being guided by their subconscious urges to actively making choices about their future direction. Part 9. Nietzsche really took a deep dive into how we think by exploring these concepts of master versus slave mentalities, revealing a fresh perspective on human behavior. He wasn't really talking about social ranks, but more about the mindsets we pick up from childhood. This helps explain why some people soar while others get stuck, even if they started under similar circumstances. The good news is that these mindsets can be shifted with some hard work and perhaps a touch of therapy. People who have that master mentality feel like they're at the helm of their own lives. They see their decisions and actions as the drivers of their destiny. When faced with issues, they don't just look for someone to blame. Instead, they figure out how they can adjust their approach. Their sense of worth comes from their achievements and personal growth, not by measuring themselves against others. They create their own rules for life based on their experiences, rather than just following others blindly. On the other hand, the slave mentality is more about feeling like life just happens to you. Folks with this outlook often believe they're largely at the whim of external forces. They're more focused on how other people affect them than on what they can do independently. When things go wrong, they tend to look for someone to blame rather than seeing what lessons they can learn. Their identity is wrapped up in moral righteousness or victimhood instead of personal triumphs. They usually accept values handed down from authority without question, or rebel without forging their own path. These mentalities typically form during childhood, shaped by the home environment and how kids bond with their caregivers. Kids who are encouraged to explore their surroundings, even make mistakes, are likely to develop the master mindset, understanding that they can shape the world through their own efforts. In contrast, children who are overly sheltered, consistently criticized, or disadvantaged often adopt the slave mindset, feeling like they can't manage the world's challenges. Nietzsche's insights align with modern-day attachment theories, which highlight how early relationships influence us. Consistent and supportive caregivers often help kids grow into confident, independent adults. But those with inconsistent or dismissive caretakers might grow up anxious and clingy or emotionally distant. These early influences can affect everything from the jobs we choose to how we relate to partners and children. The upside here is that these patterns aren't set for life. Therapy and conscious experiences can alter them. Through therapy, when therapists address these mentalities, it helps them understand why someone behaves as they do. Those caught in a slave mentality might feel stuck, facing life's hurdles without much hope, often due to past trauma or neglect. Therapy aims to acknowledge their past while encouraging them to recognize what they can control now. It's about drawing out their strengths and guiding them to take charge. On the other hand, people with a master mentality might seem self-assured and in command, but they could struggle with forming deeper connections if they're overly self-reliant. The goal is finding a harmonious balance for everyone. Some folks who seem super self-confident might come across as a bit arrogant. They need to work on opening up and realizing it's okay to lean on others now and then. They should reflect on whether their core values truly represent their beliefs, or if they've unconsciously absorbed them from family or society. In therapy, the focus is on helping these individuals merge their strengths with a good dose of empathy and understanding. No matter the personality type, It's all about finding the right mix between independence and connection with others, while balancing self-care with caring for those around them. Part 10. The Unconscious Mind. Understanding Ourselves. Back in Nietzsche's time, he had some pretty revolutionary ideas about the unconscious mind, and they're still super relevant today. He was on to the fact that what we actually know and notice is like a minuscule part of all the stuff happening in our minds. Turns out, many of our actions are driven by things we aren't even clued into, a concept he grasped way before Freud came around. This thinking really set the stage for what we now call depth psychology. If we can figure out how the unconscious mind ticks, it helps explain why we sometimes act out of line with what we reckon we want. And it's crucial for understanding genuine change in therapy. Nietzsche believed consciousness was not really about figuring ourselves out. It was more about getting along with others. He thought we evolved the knack for word thoughts mainly because it helped us to communicate and fit in socially, not so we could get cozy with our inner selves. So, a lot of what we believe are our conscious thoughts are really just our deeper instincts dressed up as social chatter. When you're dead set that you're being logical in your choices, often you've already made your mind up deep down, and you're just crafting a tale around it. This explains why folks can offer lengthy reasons for their actions that don't square with their real motives. They're not always fibbing. They earnestly believe the stories their consciousness is spinning. The unconscious mind marches to its own beat, using totally different rules than conscious thinking. It's driven by wants, feelings, and instincts more than cold facts. It enjoys symbols, metaphors, and linkages rather than clear-cut meanings. It's more about habits and recurring patterns and less about deliberate decisions. It gets shaped by early life experiences, cultural norms, and basic biological urges. And your conscious mind might not even catch on. That's why mere rational thinking rarely budges deep-seated beliefs or actions. The unconscious has its own rhythm, which needs to be understood and respected if you want to see a change. You can't simply think your way through these patterns. Nietzsche highlighted ways that the unconscious peeks through. Dreams, daydreams, and imagination are full of symbolic meanings tied to our inner struggles and desires. Those little mix-ups, blunders, and mishaps, they often reveal intentions our conscious mind would rather hide. Behavior and relationship habits can showcase unconscious beliefs and assumptions. Big emotional outbursts that seem over the top usually have roots deep down, and the things that really bug us about others might shine a light on our own hidden parts. Modern brain research backs up a lot of Nietzsche's ideas. Studies show that loads of mental activity happens off the radar, beneath the conscious level. Our brain makes decisions before we even realize it. Emotions start brewing in the brain areas linked to unconscious processing before bubbling up to the conscious mind. A lot of what we remember, see, and choose gets nudged by unconscious biases and connections. This doesn't put us at the total mercy of unconscious whims, but does suggest that consciousness isn't as much in control of our actions as we like to believe. For therapy to really work, it's crucial to connect with the unconscious mind. Just throwing information at folks or teaching coping tactics mostly works on the conscious level. True therapy digs into those deep-seated unconscious beliefs and emotional patterns. This might mean revisiting and working through past traumas, exploring what dreams and fantasies say, or experiencing relationships in new ways that challenge old beliefs. The goal isn't to nix the unconscious, but to build a better partnership between conscious and unconscious parts within us. When different parts of your mind start working together instead of fighting against each other, you usually feel more authentic, creative, and free mentally. Part 11. The Never-Ending Cycle. A mental workout for a genuine life. Nietzsche came up with this wild thought experiment that he called the never-ending cycle, and it was all about figuring out how to live a life that's real and true. Picture this. What if you were stuck repeating your life in the exact same way over and over for eternity? Does that idea send shivers down your spine, or does it inspire you? It's not really about how things are in the universe, but more about a way of checking if you're really living honestly. It's like holding up a mirror to your life and seeing how much responsibility you're taking for the choices you make. If you knew every day was on repeat forever, you'd probably give way more thought to how you're spending your time. You'd drop the things that don't give you true satisfaction. You'd steer away from people who tire you out without any real connection in return. You'd quit chasing dreams that aren't yours, but what others think you should go after. The goal would be to create experiences that, if you had to go through them again and again, you'd actually enjoy. At first, most folks find this endless loop idea kind of alarming because they're faced with parts of their life they'd never want to relive. They see the time frittered away on stuff that doesn't matter, on toxic relationships, and on goals that don't fill their hearts with joy. They come to realize just how much they've been living by others' standards instead of their own, and how they sometimes put off what truly matters while getting caught up in petty worries. But this panic can actually kickstart real change. Realizing this life is your one chance helps you take it more seriously. The goal is to gradually shift from dreading the endless loop to embracing it. This switch happens as your life starts syncing up with what you genuinely value and desire. You start making choices based on what genuinely fulfills you, rather than what you think is expected. You start saying no to activities and people that drain you, and yes, to those that give you life. You focus on sharpening those unique skills that make you, well, you, instead of trying to morph into someone else. Suddenly, you start finding joy in life's small moments, rather than waiting for the grand ones. Nowadays, psychology has found that this kind of thinking pays off. Studies suggest that pondering on our own mortality nudges us towards a more authentic existence. Research into life's choices indicates that regular reflection helps people make better decisions. The ancient practice of memento mori, contemplating your mortality, has spurred mental growth for centuries. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence takes this idea up a notch, asking not only if you're ready to face the end, but if you're prepared to repeat your entire existence. It's like extra fuel for living truthfully. To make this test work in real life, think about your day as if it's on a repeat loop. Each night, question yourself, would you want to live this day again? If the answer's no, ponder what needs to change. Are you sinking time into things that don't match your true values? Are your relationships fueling you, or just sapping your energy? Are you running after goals set by others, or are they really yours? Use these insights to make small tweaks, moving your life little by little in the direction of authenticity. It's not about being perfect, but about steadily working towards a life you'd actually want to experience endlessly. Part 12. Bringing Nietzsche's Ideas into Modern Therapy. These days, a growing number of therapists are recognizing the benefits of Nietzsche's ideas and are designing approaches informed by his philosophy. Rather than simply addressing symptoms, these innovative methods aim to empower individuals, nurture creativity, and develop personal values. The focus is on strengthening what works well instead of just addressing issues, encouraging clients to take control of their lives instead of feeling trapped by their circumstances. Understanding these approaches equips both therapists and clients with powerful tools for making psychological changes. One key technique is exploring a client's values through what's known as genealogical analysis. In other words, this involves delving into the origins of their beliefs and values. Are these truly theirs, or do they stem from family, culture, or societal norms? Therapists might ask questions like, where do you think this belief originated? Or, is this value really serving you now, or is it just a carryover from your past? By identifying which values are adopted and which are authentically theirs, clients can begin living lives that align better with who they are. Another crucial technique involves shifting the way clients view their struggles and recognizing suffering as a potential strength. Instead of merely focusing on eliminating symptoms, this approach helps clients see how their challenges have contributed to their personal development. A therapist might inquire, in what ways has enduring this made you stronger? Or, what lessons have you gained from this experience that you wouldn't have otherwise? This method acknowledges clients' pain while highlighting its transformative power. Therapists also engage clients in perspective-taking exercises to broaden their view, a concept that Nietzsche referred to as perspectivism. When clients get stuck in a particular mindset, therapists encourage them to look at things from different viewpoints. They might prompt them with, how might your best friend perceive this situation? Or, what advice would you give to someone who was in your shoes? This flexible thinking helps reduce emotional distress and enhances problem-solving creativity. Creative expression is intertwined with the therapeutic process rather than merely serving as a pastime. Nietzschean methods encourage clients to reveal their true nature through art, writing, music, or whatever medium suits them. The focus isn't on the artistic merit, but on authentic self-expression. Through creativity, clients can access their subconscious, gain deeper self-understanding, and even chart new paths in life. Essentially, they begin to narrate their own life stories. Power analysis is another tool used to help clients identify areas where they are relinquishing their power and explore how they can reclaim it. Therapists guide clients to recognize when they are residing in a victim mindset and instead turn towards action. They might delve into questions such as, where in your life do you feel like you've lost power? Or, what's one small thing you could do to change that dynamic? This approach is not about assigning blame, but empowering clients to recognize their own potential, even in tough situations. Finally, future self-visualization encourages people to envision their best possible selves if they fully explored their potential. It involves imagining this ideal version of themselves and mapping out the steps needed to reach it. This not only motivates change, but also demonstrates how current actions shape future identities. By looking beyond immediate constraints, clients can uncover promising routes ahead, shifting their focus from resolving problems to opening up exciting new possibilities. This naturally fosters hope and motivates growth. Part 13. Nietzsche argued that people have a natural knack for creativity, giving them the ability to shape their character and destiny. This was a pretty revolutionary thought when religious and scientific determinism were the dominant theories. Nietzsche challenged the notion that we're just beings with set traits, instead suggesting that we're dynamic projects constantly in the process of crafting ourselves. By diving into the mindset that fuels this creativity, he highlights how folks can change themselves intentionally, providing practical tools for personal development. Starting this process involves tearing down old habits and thought patterns. If you want to create something new, you've got to be willing to ditch what's no longer serving you. This might involve reassessing beliefs passed down by your family, stepping away from toxic relationships, or moving on from career paths that clash with your true principles. This phase of letting go isn't easy. It can feel chaotic and unsettling due to the loss of what you once knew. But it's vital for real creativity to emerge, as sticking to outdated notions won't get you anywhere fresh. Clearing the deck makes way for new ideas and creations to flourish. Then you step into a phase of experimentation and play. With old habits out of the picture, it's time to try out different ways of living without being certain of succeeding. Nietzsche called this having intellectual courage, meaning you're willing to risk flops or looking silly. You might try new artistic expressions, take on various social personas, or explore belief systems you hadn't considered before. What's key here is keeping your curiosity alive, not locking in on a specific outcome. You're essentially learning what truly clicks with your authentic self rather than aiming for predetermined goals. Following this is the process of piecing together and committing to these new patterns. As you dabble in diverse possibilities, some of them will start to really resonate with you and prove sustainable. You then begin to put effort into nurturing these newfound ways of being. Discipline and perseverance play a huge role here, as cultivating new habits and aspects of identity takes time and repeated practice. It's crucial to invest energy in this growth, even if the benefits aren't immediately apparent. This is often where folks falter, giving up too soon before these new approaches can become second nature. Current findings on neuroplasticity indicate that the brain can undergo significant change throughout a person's life. New neural connections can be developed through focused repetition, meaning that your personality, habits, and even deeply rooted beliefs can transform with intentional dedication. Research into identity formation shows that people who actively reflect on themselves and make conscious choices tend to build stronger, more cohesive identities. Studies on creativity emphasize the importance of both divergent thinking, which generates a range of ideas, and convergent thinking, which helps in narrowing down those ideas. Nietzsche's concept of self-creation intertwines these approaches. To truly embrace this philosophy, treat your life as an ongoing creative project. Regularly evaluate which aspects of your identity are outdated, identify the new characteristics you want to cultivate, and explore ways to embark on these new journeys. Approach this endeavor with the dedication and seriousness of an artist working on their masterpiece. Set aside time routinely for self-reflection, experimenting with new ideas, and practicing the habits you envision. Keep a record of your progress and insights to help you keep growing. Remember, the journey to becoming your truest self is a continuous one, not a final destination. Nietzsche's notion of becoming who you are revolves not around uncovering a predetermined essence, but around actively crafting an authentic self through thoughtful choices and dedication. It's all about taking responsibility for who you truly are and shaping your own personality, rather than just adopting habits and behaviors you've acquired over time or borrowed from others without realizing it. In short, it's about being the author of your own life story, rather than just a character in someone else's narrative. While this can be challenging, it's also deeply rewarding. By doing this, you move from simply drifting through life to intentionally defining what life means to you and what you hold dear. Part 14. Nietzsche had a hunch about what might happen if old-school religious and moral systems started losing their influence, calling it a meaning crisis, or nihilism in simpler terms. Basically, this is when life starts to feel pointless, like nothing really matters, and all those values people hold dear seem kind of random. If you look around today, it seems like that's exactly the headspace a lot of people are in, feeling empty, without direction, and lacking a clear sense of purpose. To address this, we've got to really understand what nihilism is and figure out how to deal with it for ourselves and society as a whole. Nihilism creeps in when people stop buying into those big, ancient sources of meaning and haven't found new ones yet to guide them. Back in the day, religion was the go-to for giving folks the rules and reasons about why their lives were important and how to live them well. But when sticking with those beliefs started becoming tough for a lot of people, they found themselves at an existential dead end, often leading to feelings of depression, anxiety, addiction, or just plain despair. When someone gets stuck in the rut of nihilism, they're likely to conclude that without a God or some ultimate moral law to live by, nothing really holds any weight. It's like they've hit a global level of learned helplessness. Without some overarching framework to give meaning to what they do, everything seems pointless. Right now, nihilism is showing up big time as skyrocketing rates of depression and anxiety, especially among younger folks. We're seeing more cases of suicide, self-harm, and addictions making headlines. Getting involved in politics often feels futile, with apathy and cynicism running rampant, while chasing after shallow pleasures becomes the go-to escape from that overwhelming feeling of emptiness. Social media isn't helping either, as it amplifies these nihilistic vibes by trapping people in an endless cycle of comparison and reducing real human connections to just surface-level interactions. Meanwhile, consumer culture tries to plug that void with the promise that buying more stuff will do the trick, but it just offers temporary relief. This leaves us with a generation that enjoys the best material comfort ever yet, stumbles along without a solid existential foundation. Nietzsche saw nihilism as both a threat and an opportunity. The danger is obvious. It can pull people into despair, prompting destructive behavior, and cause them to toss their values out the window. But it's also viewed as a necessary step. By clearing out flimsy or shallow sources of meaning, it makes way for the genuine stuff. Someone who's faced and conquered nihilism often ends up more resilient than someone who never really questioned the values they were given. They learn to craft meaning from within rather than just swallowing whatever's handed to them. This is what Nietzsche called being a free spirit, able to live without clinging to absolute certainty. Tackling nihilism involves therapy that encourages people to build meaningful lives on their own terms, rather than relying on outside authorities. It's about creating what existential therapists term authentic existence, where individuals take charge of defining their values and life goals. It's about finding meaning in the journey itself, not in some faraway finish line or reward. People start to generate value through their actions, relationships, and contributions instead of looking for it in some pre-planned cosmic plot. Overcoming nihilism often involves figuring out your personal values through a mix of self-reflection and trial and error, rather than blindly following what came before. Dive into activities that provide genuine inner satisfaction instead of just chasing after external praise. Build deep, genuine connections instead of settling for superficial chats. Contribute to something bigger, whether it's through your work, volunteering, or creating something new. Practice gratitude and mindfulness to uncover value in the everyday, ordinary moments. Instead of seeing uncertainty and the unknown as things that need to be solved, try viewing them as normal parts of the human experience. The secret to steering clear of feeling like life has no meaning is to dive in and live fully, even when you're facing tough times and don't have all the answers. This means you have to toughen up emotionally, be brave enough to challenge your own thinking, and find your own creative way to live. You need to be in charge of carving out your own sense of meaning, rather than waiting for it to magically appear or come from somewhere else. Those who master this skill tend to feel more satisfied with their lives than those stuck looking for answers in the usual places. They get better at standing on their own 2 feet mentally and bouncing back when things don't go their way. They move from being seekers of meaning to being creators of it. In Part 15, we dive into how Nietzsche's take on the herd mentality really highlights how social media and cancel culture operate in today's world. Nietzsche observed that most people tend to go with the flow to feel safe and comfortable, rather than stepping out into the often intimidating territory of independent thinking. Social media amplifies this behavior, creating online groups where fitting in is key, reinforced by likes, shares, and the social pressure to conform. By understanding these psychological dynamics, we get a better grasp of today's social challenges and learn how to stay true to ourselves in a world that often promotes uniformity. The concept of herd mentality is rooted in survival. Being part of a group has historically increased chances of survival. As a result, we're highly attuned to others' opinions of us, a trait that was beneficial in our tribal past, but can be counterproductive in today's vast and impersonal digital world. These same instincts can lead us into mob mentality and groupthink. Social media feeds off our need for acceptance by providing immediate feedback. Every post garners instant reactions through comments, likes, and shares, creating a feedback loop where people may tweak what they say just to get those positive responses, often putting aside their true opinions. Over time, this can alter someone's self-perception, leading them to act more for approval than authenticity, trading genuine expression for temporary online recognition. Cancel culture is the herd mentality taken to another level. If you stray from what the group thinks is acceptable, you might face a barrage of online critiques ready to publicly slam you, affect your job prospects, and push you to the social fringes. This fear-laden environment makes people reluctant to voice their thoughts, prompting self-censorship and conformity. The result is superficial agreement that obscures genuine diversity in thought and feeling. Nietzsche cautioned that letting the herd lead results in mediocrity as groups typically choose the path of least resistance. Innovation, and thus progress, comes from breaking the mold, yet herd mentality often stifles uniqueness. That's why so much content on social media seems repetitive and bland. There's a system rewarding the status quo and penalizing individuality. To combat this herd mentality, Nietzsche advocated for what he called intellectual courage. This involves thinking independently, even when your thoughts aren't aligned with the mainstream. It means seeking validation within yourself rather than waiting for others' approval. Practice expressing your true opinions, even if they're not widely shared. Surround yourself with people who value authenticity over mere consensus and who encourage free thinking. Get comfortable with uncertainty and resist the urge to follow the crowd. One practical step is to cut down on social media use to relieve some of the pressure to conform. When engaging on these platforms, try to share content that honestly reflects your beliefs and interests instead of just posting what's likely to go viral. Diversify your information sources to view things from different perspectives and avoid being stuck in an echo chamber. Work on disagreeing respectfully and articulating your perspectives openly. Remember that your worth isn't connected to the number of likes or fitting in on social media. Build your confidence by trusting and reflecting on your own thoughts. Part 16. Nietzsche really shook things up with his take on what our minds need versus what's considered morally right. Basically, he pointed out that what society says is morally good might not actually be great for your mental health. And on the flip side, stuff that seems morally questionable might be just what you need psychologically. This challenges how we think about moral values and their impact on our mental well-being, something valuable for therapists and those seeking therapy. Most of the time, standard moral rules tell us to put others before ourselves, be humble, and suppress our natural instincts. Sure, these ideas help keep society running smoothly, but they might not do wonders for your mental well-being. Take someone who's forever putting others first. They might seem super nice, but beneath the surface, they could be filled with resentment and losing sight of their true selves. Someone who keeps all their frustrations bottled up might appear calm, but deep down could be dealing with depression or hidden anger issues. Following all the rules might make someone come across as well-mannered, but can also squash their joy and creativity. When you stick to moral rules without thinking, it can feel like you're stuck in a mental prison. On the other hand, staying mentally healthy involves being genuine and accepting all facets of yourself, even the ones that society might frown upon. Someone who's mentally well knows it's perfectly fine to get angry, to pursue personal passions without self-imposed guilt, and to stand up against those in power when necessary. They realize that protecting their own needs isn't being selfish, but a way to be genuinely available for others. They're not afraid to state their goals and personal limits. They accept the parts of themselves that don't fit the mold, which can sometimes bump up against conventional moral standards. The therapy field needs to pay attention to this. There will be cases when clients may need to step away from traditional morals to truly find psychological well-being. Someone who constantly pleases others may need to learn how to put their needs first. A person who always says yes could really benefit from learning to assert themselves. Someone drowning in guilt may need to start accepting their desires, and those who usually comply might improve by sometimes challenging authority. This isn't about encouraging harm, but recognizing that mental health might sometimes require stepping away from social norms. It's more about being authentic than just playing the moral role. Recent research supports this idea of separating mental and moral health. Studies show that people fixated on maintaining a morally good image often face more anxiety, depression, and unstable relationships. Research into authenticity reveals that folks who express their thoughts and feelings tend to have better mental health than those who just stick to what's expected socially. Also, teaching people to stand their ground and set boundaries is shown to improve mental health even if it's not appreciated by everyone around them. This isn't about abandoning all moral values, but it does encourage a closer examination of ethics. True morality should uplift, not mentally burden you. If moral frameworks are causing harm, it's time to question and revamp them. The goal is to find a life path that stays true to who you are while still being considerate to others. It's about looking beyond strict rules and creating a moral perspective that's wise enough to handle life's messy complexities. It means being an active participant in moral decisions, not just a follower. Practically, this involves checking if the morals and actions you follow help or harm your mental well-being. Have a moment to ponder this. Are your values genuinely bringing you joy, or are they just a burden? Are your actions aligning with your true self, or are you just trying to dodge judgment from others? Maybe there's an aspect of your life where clinging too tightly to societal expectations is actually bringing you down. It's important to reflect on this thoughtfully, considering how it affects those around you, but also prioritize your own well-being and personal truths. Remember, self-care isn't self-indulgent. It's essential if you want to genuinely support and care for others. Part 17. All right, so let's really dig into how dealing with hard times can actually help us grow, according to Nietzsche. He's got this wild idea that struggling through tough spots should be embraced instead of avoided. Unlike how we tend to handle things these days, he isn't suggesting that we should actively seek out pain, but he acknowledges that some suffering is just unavoidable. And when we tackle it head-on with the right attitude, it can really transform us for the better. By tuning into the beneficial kind of suffering, we can distinguish between pain that has the potential to heal and pain that just keeps hurting us. Not all suffering is created equal. We've got the really harsh, seemingly senseless stuff like abuse and trauma that just knocks people down flat. That kind usually needs a way out, some form of healing, or just needs to be stopped altogether. But then there's the kind of suffering that, believe it or not, can actually lead to growth. These are the growing pains we feel when we're pushing ourselves, trying to overcome challenges, or handling big life changes. Picking up a new skill, taking risks, and letting go of old habits can be uncomfortable, but they all play a part in our development. The good kind of suffering, the type that fosters growth, usually has some key characteristics. For starters, it's something we choose, or at least agree to, rather than something forced on us. It also has a clear start and finish. It's not just endless or pointless. This kind of struggle makes us tougher, wiser, and doesn't just beat us down. Plus, it often connects us to something beyond ourselves rather than leaving us stuck in our own misery. When suffering meets these conditions, it can really change the game. Lately, modern psychology has started to catch up with these ideas, and you can spot them in concepts like post-traumatic growth. This is where, after going through really tough events, people say they end up stronger, with a newfound appreciation for life, better relationships, or even some spiritual boost. But that kind of growth doesn't just happen automatically. It all depends on how we make sense of and absorb what we've been through. If we can find some sort of meaning in the pain, we're more likely to come out ahead. In therapy, the focus is on helping people figure out what kind of pain they're dealing with. Is it just dragging them down, or does it have the potential to help them grow? If it's the sort of pain that's not doing them any good, the aim is to reduce it through therapy, medication, or by changing the environment. But if the pain has potential, therapists try to help it serve a purpose, maybe by using challenges as opportunities to grow, highlighting strengths gained from hard times, or connecting personal struggles to something larger. It's not about getting rid of all suffering, just ensuring whatever unavoidable pain exists also brings growth. This helps transform people from simply being sufferers into survivors who draw strength from their past experiences. Nietzsche offers this concept of amor fati, or loving our fate. It's about understanding that tough experiences contribute to who we are as individuals. This isn't about glorifying suffering, but recognizing that it plays a role in shaping our strength, wisdom, and compassion. By reinterpreting past pain, it becomes more than just a stumbling block. It becomes something that enriches our psychological arsenal. The goal is to become more skilled in handling discomfort and life's challenges. When you're facing tough situations, try asking yourself what lessons you could glean from the experience. Consider how this struggle might be an opportunity to grow. Think about what new strengths you might develop by facing this challenge. It's not about being grateful for every hardship, but about finding ways to extract value from the inevitable pain. Learn to tell the difference between suffering that can help you grow and that which only wears you down. Minimize the latter, but look for meaning in the former. Remember, if you're always ducking out of tricky situations, you're missing out on a big chance to beef up your resilience and strength. In Part 18, we dive into Nietzsche's perspectivism, which is the idea that there aren't universal truths, just different interpretations depending on where you're standing. It's not that every opinion is equally valid, but each perspective has its own limitations and biases. Learning this can help you be more flexible in your thinking and steer clear of the kind of rigid thinking that often leads to emotional issues. This insight is crucial for therapy, personal relationships, and self-growth. At its core, perspectivism is about recognizing that all knowledge is filtered through the eyes of the person perceiving it, influenced by their background, history, and interests. For example, a rich person and someone struggling financially will see the economy in completely different ways. In a family setting, a parent's perspective on interactions with their child won't be the same as the child's. Someone who's experienced trauma will see the world differently compared to someone who hasn't. Each stance holds its own truths, but may miss others. The goal isn't to pin down one correct view, but to appreciate the intricate beauty that arises when multiple viewpoints are considered. Often, psychological problems stem from getting stuck in a fixed way of thinking that no longer serves your well-being. Depression might make you focus only on the negatives, ignoring any positives. Anxiety can keep you zeroing in on potential dangers while ignoring signs of safety. Anger might make you interpret others' actions as purposefully hurtful when innocent explanations exist. These rigid thought patterns can trap people in perspectives that lead to unnecessary suffering. Therapy often involves helping people see situations from new angles, opening the door to better understanding and different behaviors. You can enhance your skill in seeing things from different perspectives through deliberate practice. When you hit a challenging situation, actively imagine how someone else might view it. What would your friends think if they were in your shoes? How might your perspective change 5 years down the road? What advice would you give to a friend dealing with the same issue? How can you put a positive twist on the situation? Pondering these questions can help you break out of rigid thinking patterns and reframe what's happening, encouraging mental flexibility that calms emotional reflexes and bolsters creative problem solving. Perspectivism is also vital for understanding others. Instead of expecting everyone to think and feel just like you, it's better to realize they're coming from a place molded by their own life experiences. Behavior that looks strange to you might make perfect sense to them. This doesn't mean letting harmful actions slide, but understanding the psychological motives behind them. This understanding can ease conflicts and foster empathy and compassion, allowing you to connect with the person behind their actions rather than just reacting to their behavior. In relationships, perspectivism helps in resolving conflicts. It shows how both parties can be right in their own ways. Rather than fighting over who's right, partners can explore how differing viewpoints might lead to misunderstandings. They can begin to appreciate each other's perspectives and work towards understanding together. This transforms combative relationships into ones where differences fuel learning rather than conflict. Finally, nurturing this kind of thinking means being aware of your own blind spots. Think about what you might be missing from where you stand. What biases could be shaping your understanding? How would someone with an opposing view describe their perspective? This kind of intellectual humility helps you avoid becoming stuck in your ways and opens you up to new information and possibilities that you might not have previously considered. You've picked up on the kind of wisdom that grasps just how messy human experiences can get, but without falling into the trap of thinking that all opinions hold the same weight. In reality, there are perspectives that are more accurate, helpful, or moral than others, although none of them are flawless. The key is to strive for understanding that nudges closer to the truth and has the potential to be more beneficial, while remaining open to changing when fresh insights or experiences arise. Part 19. Understanding and Building Values. Nietzsche challenged the way we typically think about values, proposing that they aren't fixed truths we find through logic or divine insights. He believed values are actually human-made, which gives us the opportunity and responsibility to create values that benefit people. Understanding how we form values explains why sometimes people struggle with right and wrong and offers ways to develop authentic ethics. This way, ethical dilemmas become chances for creative responsibility rather than just following rules. Values aren't born from abstract ideas. They come from human needs, desires, and social dynamics. Take honesty, for instance. It's crucial because trust is necessary for cooperation. Courage is valued because life's full of uncertainty and danger. Compassion matters as we recognize our shared vulnerabilities and interdependence. Understanding these psychological roots helps us identify which values help people thrive and which ones don't. It also shows how values can sensibly differ across different situations or cultures. Many psychological challenges stem from a mismatch between the values imposed upon us and our personal experiences. If someone grows up believing it's always wrong to show anger, they might struggle with depression because they can't express their assertiveness. Someone taught that success equals relentless competitiveness may feel empty, even if they're celebrated by others. Another might believe that self-sacrifice is the ultimate good, only to end up feeling drained and resentful. These conflicts can lead to anxiety, depression, or relationship problems. To address this, it's vital to reassess the values we've been taught and figure out which truly align with our authentic needs and which ones might need replacing. Creating personal values is an ongoing process with several steps. First, pinpoint what you genuinely need and desire, not simply what you think you should want. Next, determine if your current values support or impede those real needs. Then, explore alternative values that might better align with your well-being. After that, test these new values in your life to see how they work out. Finally, fine-tune and commit to the values that prove beneficial, while remaining open to change as circumstances evolve. As times and our needs change, our values must also adapt to stay practical and helpful. This process of creating values isn't just for individuals. It applies to communities too. While personal values need to reflect one's needs and character, they also have to fit within relationships and cultural standards. The challenge is creating values that remain true to yourself while considering their impact on others. The goal isn't to be self-centered and ignore everyone else, nor is it to completely conform and forget your own needs. Mature value creation involves finding that balance where you can meet both your own needs and those of others. Modern research in moral psychology supports Nietzsche's theories about values. Studies have shown that individuals who take the time to reflect on and choose their values experience higher levels of satisfaction compared to those who just accept what their family or culture imposes. Research on intrinsic motivation reveals that actions guided by personally meaningful values last longer than those motivated by external rewards or punishments. Studies on moral development show that higher stages involve questioning and revising traditional moral systems. Engaging in practical value creation involves consistently thinking about what truly matters to you and why. Imagine this scenario. What values do you genuinely hold close to your heart, and which ones have you adopted from the people and experiences around you? If you could start from scratch, what principles would you choose to guide you? Consider how your values impact not only your own happiness, but also the well-being of those in your life. Are there areas where you need to develop new values to tackle current challenges effectively? Remember, forming your values isn't a one-time task. As you evolve and change, you might need to tweak your values occasionally. The goal is to actively mold your moral guide rather than simply inherit it from others around you. Part 20. The Real You vs. the You Society Expects. Nietzsche touched on some deep psychological ideas when he talked about the difference between our real self and society self. The society self is like this mask we put on to blend in and get the thumbs up from others, whereas the real self is who we are once we strip away all those societal expectations. If you can't tell these two apart, it can mess with your head, making you feel all sorts of ways because you're not being who you truly are. But once you grasp this concept, it's a giant leap toward feeling true contentment and self-peace. From when we're little, we start carefully shaping these social versions of ourselves. Kids are quick to notice what gets smiles and what keeps them out of hot water, so they start favoring those traits while tucking away the rest. Over time, this mask can start to feel like the real deal, overshadowing our actual selves. We end up performing in a social play rather than living as our true selves. This inner split can lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, or just this cloud of emptiness. Your true self is pretty much everything about you, even those bits that might not get a round of applause from society. It's a wild mix of our instincts, raw feelings, creative thoughts, and quirky qualities that make us who we really are. Unlike the smooth social self, our genuine self can be all over the place and tough to categorize. It comes with emotions like anger, parts of who we love or our passions, and even those vulnerable moments the social self would rather hide. It's about learning how to let these genuine bits come out without bottling them up. When life throws us big curveballs, the tension between our true selves and social selves can become clearer. Someone might be at the peak of societal success, but still feel hollow inside. They might have invested so much in this outer role, they've lost track of what truly lights them up. It's during these times people might ask themselves who they really are underneath it all, at times leading to an identity crisis. These tough situations, however, can be a push towards being more genuine and finding a balance. They nudge us to double-check if we're really living in line with our true selves. Therapy often helps in separating the real you from the one society expects. This means fostering an environment where people can explore pieces of themselves they've typically kept under wraps. It's about examining family and societal ideas of what's normal and seeing if those still fit. The goal isn't to dump the social self because it does have its purposes, but rather to prevent it from completely smothering our true selves. The healthiest folks are those who can smoothly shift between being professional at work or goofy at home, knowing when to be serious or just let loose. Recent research strongly backs the notion that being true to oneself is crucial for good mental health. Studies suggest that people living authentically tend to report lower bouts of depression and anxiety, alongside a greater sense of life satisfaction. Research on role conflict points out how big discrepancies between public behavior and private self can lead to psychological chaos. Meanwhile, studies on self-concept clarity show that those with a firm, clear sense of self-identity handle stress better and make wiser choices. This research aligns with Nietzsche's idea that for a mind to be truly healthy, all parts of who you are need to unify instead of staying separate. The goal is real wholeness, not pulling off a split act. To genuinely integrate, keep assessing if the life you exhibit on the outside is true to what you feel on the inside. Think about it. Are you being genuine with the folks in your life and on the job? What bits of yourself do you feel you have to tuck away to blend in? What steps can you take to be truer to who you really are while still supporting your key relationships and commitments? Start small by sharing your real thoughts and feelings with those you trust. Pay attention to moments when you're just playing a role versus when you're authentically you. Gradually expand the areas where you're comfy being real. Keep in mind, being authentic doesn't mean spilling every detail without a filter. It's all about finding ways to let the true you shine through in your everyday life. Part 21. God is Dead. Nietzsche was highlighting a profound shift in how people find meaning and authority in their lives. More and more, people were starting to drift away from relying solely on religious institutions for guidance or moral direction. This change, however, is a double-edged sword. On one side, there's a crisis because the old, familiar ways of finding purpose crumble away. Yet, on the flip side, this upheaval also opens up a chance for people to forge their own paths and become psychologically independent. Understanding this transformation helps us see why so many mental health issues have spiked in modern times and might even point us to possible solutions. When Nietzsche talks about the death of God, he's calling out the fall of all external authorities that used to hand out clear life instructions. This isn't just about religion, it also involves rigid political ideologies, strict moral codes, and cultural traditions that used to dictate people's roles and expectations. Without these external guides, individuals are tossed into what existentialists refer to as the burden of freedom, the daunting task of carving out your own path without any guarantees. This can be terrifying for those accustomed to being guided, but it's also a golden opportunity for those willing to take charge of their lives. This shift can stir up a whirlwind of psychological issues like existential anxiety, depression, or even nihilism. People may feel overwhelmed by too many options or get stuck in a rut of uncertainty about what's the right course. Decision fatigue can become a real problem, as one constantly has to make choices that used to be covered by tradition or authority. Some folks might cling tightly to their religious or political beliefs, whereas others might fall into a trap where nothing seems to matter. Both routes avoid the challenging but liberating work of crafting personal authority and meaningful values. They're essentially dodging freedom instead of embracing it. Becoming psychologically independent means building internal guidance systems to take the place of the old external authorities. It's about trusting your own judgment while keeping an open mind to what others have to say. It requires forming your personal values through reflection and experience, not just taking them at face value. It's about getting comfortable with handling uncertainty and ambiguity without needing hard and fast answers. And crucially, it involves owning the outcomes of your decisions instead of blaming outside forces. This kind of work, though tough, leads to genuine empowerment and authenticity. Therapy often helps people move from looking to others for direction to trusting their own instincts. It involves shifting from asking what others think you should do to discovering what feels true and significant to you. It's about getting comfortable with life's uncertainties and ambiguities rather than chasing false certainties. People learn to make choices based on what they value and believe while still taking into account other perspectives. They grow confident in their ability to handle whatever results from their decisions. The end game is real self-reliance that doesn't hinge on outside approval or direction. Additionally, the concept of God's death makes room for what Nietzsche called self-deification, though not in a self-absorbed way. It's about fully taking on the responsibility for defining the meaning and purpose of your own life. You don't wait for some external source to hand you your life's meaning. You create it yourself. This involves understanding that meaning emerges from your choices and commitments, rather than divine revelations or logical conclusions. Pick what truly matters to you and build your life around those priorities. By doing this, you're no longer just following the crowd. You're crafting your own path filled with value and meaning. Becoming a more mature version of you is a tough but rewarding ride. This journey means learning to stand alone when making big decisions. Start by really diving into the beliefs and values you grew up with and see which ones still feel right for you today. Make choices based on your own thinking rather than waiting for others to give you the green light. It's about being okay with making decisions even if you're not 100% sure. Instead of dodging risks, let your mistakes be part of the learning curve. As you get better at handling challenges by yourself, you'll find your confidence growing. Remember, being independent doesn't mean you have to cut ties. It's totally possible to stay connected to others while being your own person. The goal is to be self-sufficient in a way that enhances rather than diminishes your valuable relationships. Part 22. Nietzsche's perspective on power really sheds light on the complicated give and take in all human relationships. He really understood how questions of control, influence, and independence sneak their way into our interactions, often hiding in the background. These power dynamics can be a good thing, helping everyone involved feel empowered and grow, or they can be damaging, leading to a cycle of control and submission. Being aware of how power plays out in relationships can explain why some exchanges lift our spirits while others leave us feeling exhausted. This awareness can provide strategies for creating more balanced and satisfying connections. In relationships, power isn't usually about obvious displays like physical might or having a lot of money. It often works its way through more under-the-radar means, like guilt-tripping, fostering dependence, or using emotional tactics. Take, for example, a partner who always seems like the victim. They might be shifting the scales by making others feel responsible for their happiness. Or someone who is excessively generous might actually be creating a sense of dependency to feel essential. The person who seems selfless might be using their goodness as a way to hold a moral high ground, subtly controlling others through feelings of guilt. These hidden power dynamics can actually end up weakening the very relationships they're meant to strengthen. From Nietzsche's viewpoint, healthy power dynamics involve supporting one another. Couples or partners should help each other grow and maintain their independence rather than trying to control or suppress one another. They manage to stay strong without making the other person deal with their emotional baggage, encouraging development even when it means facing some rough patches. They share the influence and decision-making in ways that respect both parties' needs and wishes. This requires emotional maturity and a relationship strong enough to deal with the ups and downs of real partnership. Issues often pop up in relationships when people try to gain power through weakness, not strength. Someone who can't bring themselves to say no might resort to being passive-aggressive, or fear of being left behind can lead to clinginess and trying to control the other person. Feeling inadequate might push a partner to criticize the other in an attempt to level things out. These tactics might work in the short run, but usually lead to resentment and distance. They're misplaced efforts at asserting power and need to be recognized and reworked into healthier habits. In therapy, couples often work to uncover these subconscious power plays and figure out how to meet their needs more clearly and directly. The process involves boosting self-esteem so one doesn't have to undercut their partner to feel validated. It's about fostering communication skills to express needs and concerns openly, avoiding manipulations behind the scenes. Couples are encouraged to negotiate differences face to face, steering clear of secretive maneuvers. They learn to be open to influence without giving up their individual freedom, leading to relationships based on choice rather than coercion, emphasizing connection over control. These dynamics of power aren't just found in romantic relationships. They show up in families, friendships, and workplaces too. A parent who burdens their child with their own emotional well-being is misusing power. A friend who only gets in touch when they need something is taking advantage. A boss who rules through fear rather than inspiration is demonstrating insecure power. Recognizing these patterns helps in protecting against being taken advantage of, and also encourages reflection on how one might be misusing power themselves. In the end, the goal is to use any power you have to promote growth and connection, steering clear from the pits of domination and control. To really feel powerful in relationships, you want to grow your self-confidence without the urge to control those around you. The key is to find ways to meet your own emotional needs while still forming strong connections with others. This involves practicing straightforward communication, which helps you express what you need without using manipulation. It's crucial to catch yourself when you're trying to control someone and instead focus on bettering yourself. Support others as they grow and become independent, even if that means things don't go the way you'd like. Remember, true power in relationships comes from the ability to love others authentically and be loved back, rather than trying to control or be controlled. Part 23. Getting to grips with revenge and forgiveness. Nietzsche took a deep dive into our complex emotions around getting even and letting go, especially when we've been wronged. He highlighted that wanting to retaliate when someone hurts us is an inherent human reaction and has its own set of psychological roles. Meanwhile, forgiveness can either heal or conceal our weaknesses, depending largely on context. His perspective underlines why simply advising someone to forgive and forget isn't usually enough to resolve deep-seated grudges and offers insight into better ways to navigate them, which is vital for personal healing and keeping relationships on the right track. The call for revenge pops up because we're trying to right the scales after being wronged. When someone harms us, it often feels like they've taken something precious, leaving us lopsided. Revenge feels like a way to make them pay back, to even things out again. This drive doesn't always signal a defect and can be handy in discouraging further harm or protecting our self-worth. Problems arise, though, when the thirst for revenge takes over, or when it's blown out of proportion compared to the initial harm. What's important is to rediscover equilibrium without letting the process tear you apart. Nietzsche differentiated clearly between active and reactive responses to injury. Active responses mean taking proactive steps, like setting boundaries or cutting ties, taking legal measures, or growing personally to address and prevent future hurt. Such actions restore a sense of personal power and respect, aiding in progress. On the other hand, reactive responses involve brooding over the wrongs, harboring resentment, and plotting revenge, which traps you in your past hurt. These reflexes frequently end up hurting you more than the original wrongdoing ever did. According to Nietzsche, genuine forgiveness is rooted in strength. It surfaces when someone doesn't need retribution anymore, because they've rebuilt their self-confidence and worth through other means. True forgiveness is a personal choice, not a response to outside pressure or expectations. It's liberating, releasing us from the chains of past injuries. In contrast, false forgiveness might mask lingering bitterness or be a strategy to avoid confrontation and maintain superficial harmony. This doesn't resolve the underlying harm and could lead to passive-aggressive behaviors or repeated conflicts. Finding the true path to forgiveness involves several stages. Firstly, the injured person must fully acknowledge and accept the wrong, without downplaying or excusing it. Then, it's vital to express their real anger and hurt, rather than suppress these feelings. It's also crucial to take actions to protect themselves and regain a sense of control. Moreover, finding meaning or learning from the experience is important. Ultimately, they let go of resentment, not to excuse the offender, but to free themselves. It's a gradual process, not something that can be rushed or enforced, blossoming naturally as healing progresses. Diving headfirst into forgiveness too soon can actually hinder healing rather than aid it. Modern research supports Nietzsche's insights into how complex forgiveness can be. It finds that true forgiveness is tied to improved mental and physical health, while rushed or insincere forgiveness can stir emotional chaos. Studies show that people who stifle their anger often struggle with depression, anxiety, and rocky relationships. Research on post-traumatic growth suggests that those who find meaning in their suffering tend to release resentment more easily throughout their healing journey. When dealing with someone who's hurt you, it's crucial to prioritize your own safety and take steps to protect yourself. Feeling angry or hurt is natural, and there's no rush to offer forgiveness immediately. Find healthy outlets for your emotions, whether that's jotting your thoughts in a journal, confiding in trusted friends, or seeking guidance from a therapist. Consider actions that help you regain your sense of power and self-worth. Reflect on whether there's a lesson or inner strength you can gain from the experience. Once you've processed your feelings, then contemplate if forgiving them could bring you peace. Remember, forgiving is about helping you heal, not excusing the person who inflicted the pain. Part 24. Nietzsche really put a lot of weight on being true to yourself intellectually, seeing it as one of the highest virtues necessary for personal growth. It's all about having the courage to honestly scrutinize your beliefs and actions without deceiving yourself or finding excuses. We often tend to avoid facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves through mental gymnastics. But by embracing intellectual honesty, we can cut through those defenses and pave the way to genuine self-understanding and transformation. When it comes to intellectual honesty, it's about not mixing up your desires with reality. Many people hold on to beliefs because they are comforting or align with their existing worldview, not because they are based on facts. People might convince themselves that they're better, smarter, or more successful than they are, or overlook major issues in their personal or professional lives because acknowledging these would require addressing difficult problems. Intellectual honesty is about accepting the truth, no matter how hard it might be to swallow. To get to this level of self-examination, you need to regularly question what's happening within your mind and why you act the way you do. It's about having the bravery to ask yourself the tough questions. Am I doing this for the reasons I claim? What am I avoiding or denying? How might I be fooling myself about my motivations? Are there patterns I keep repeating while claiming I want change? These questions illuminate the gap between our conscious intentions and our actions, often revealing why real change is a struggle. Nietzsche understood that most people shy away from this sort of self-examination because it disrupts the carefully crafted image they have of themselves. It's far simpler to cling to comforting illusions than confront potentially unsettling truths. But ultimately, deceiving yourself leads to more suffering because it prevents you from addressing actual problems. Like, if someone refuses to admit they have a drinking issue, they can't overcome alcoholism. If someone ignores their role in relationship conflicts, improvement is impossible. If a worker won't acknowledge their professional shortcomings, they won't learn and grow. Self-deception might feel safe in the short term, but it's damaging in the long run. Being intellectually honest means facing some uncomfortable truths now for a better future. To foster this kind of honesty, you need spaces where you can reflect without judgment. This could be anything from writing in a journal about your feelings to speaking with a therapist who can offer honest feedback. It might also involve meditation to enhance self-awareness, or getting advice from trusted friends who will tell you the truth with kindness. Moreover, this honesty isn't just about introspection. It also applies to what we believe about the world. Many people hold beliefs simply because they're inherited from family, society, or authority figures. Intellectual honesty involves questioning these absorbed beliefs to discern which are supported by evidence and which are mere biases or wishful thinking. It's not about discarding all beliefs or becoming cynical, but about being willing to change your mind when presented with better evidence. It's about being ready to own up to mistakes and revise your views with new information, which is essential for psychological growth and adapting to change. Being intellectually honest with yourself can lead to mental freedom. Once you stop deceiving yourself, you start dealing with the real issues instead of imaginary ones. Facing difficult truths allows you to make decisions based on reality. Recognizing your limitations lets you either improve or accept them without frustration. Understanding why you do what you do lets you make choices that align with your true self. This method builds a solid foundation for a sound mind that relies on reality rather than fantasies. Although the truth may not always be comforting, it liberates you. Embracing intellectual honesty transforms you from being stuck in your own deceptions to becoming a person capable of making genuine choices and evolving. Part 25. The artist-philosopher, as healer Nietzsche, came along and shook things up with his unique take on healing the psyche. He blended philosophical musings with artistic flair, seeing himself as both a thinker and a creator. Through his works, he explored deep psychological concepts not just for his own healing, but also as a therapeutic approach for others. This kind of therapy suggests that true healing needs both keen insight and creative change. Nowadays, more therapies are tapping into this combo, bridging the gap between cognitive understanding and the lively activity of the arts. Traditional therapy often breaks down problems and finds ways to manage them, which can be pretty effective, sure. But Nietzsche already understood that lasting change often demands more than just rational understanding. It requires diving into imagination and welcoming fresh possibilities. Creative outlets such as art, music, and literature touch parts of the psyche that logic alone often misses. They offer alternative ways to navigate feelings and experiences that are difficult to articulate. Plus, these creative processes are a chance to unleash and experiment, paving the way for authentic transformation. Imagine your life as a piece of art that's always evolving. Instead of seeing yourself as a fixed personality, think of yourself as a dynamic being, ever-changing. This means using your analytical mind, like a philosopher, to get a handle on what's happening now, and your creative mind, like an artist, to explore new horizons. You become both the creator and the creation, molding yourself through thoughtful choices and imaginative pursuits. Viewing growth this way turns it from merely solving problems into an inspiring creative journey. It taps into our inherent desire to create and express, making personal development something both fulfilling and sustainable. Creativity plays many roles in therapy. It gives you a safe spot to voice emotions that might be too raw for words. Whether through writing, painting, or music, these outlets can help manage feelings like grief or happiness in ways that mere conversation might not. Moreover, engaging in creative activities can naturally unlock insights without forcing them. The act of creation can be soothing, providing moments of flow that keep us grounded in the present. Lastly, creative expression can turn abstract feelings into concrete forms, making them easier to comprehend and work through. The philosophical aspect of this approach dives deeper into the meanings underlying your life's experiences. It invites you to explore the big questions about purpose, values, and identity, instead of just focusing on what's immediately troubling. Philosophy provides a broader context, helping understand pain, growth, and what it is to be human, situating personal challenges within a grander narrative. Understanding the deeper meaning behind issues often empowers people to change and find peace with things beyond their control. In today's world, therapy is increasingly incorporating artistic and creative elements. There are various therapies like art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy, and writing therapy that capture the healing power of creativity. There's also narrative therapy, which helps people rewrite their stories positively, and mindfulness practices often integrate creative activities to build awareness of the current moment. Even traditional cognitive therapies are starting to catch on to how effective metaphors, visual imagery, and creative exercises can be for sparking change. These advancements support Nietzsche's idea that true healing involves engaging with the whole person, not just their rational side. The key takeaway here is to blend both critical thinking and creativity into your journey of personal development. Set aside time to deeply ponder important questions about meaning, purpose, and what you genuinely care about. Consistently dive into creative activities where you can express your true self. Whether you find joy in writing, painting, making music, or dancing, these outlets can help you to reach emotions and stories that are tough to articulate. Experiment with various creative forms to discover which resonates with your mood and interests. By combining thoughtful insight with imaginative exploration, you can achieve deeper and more lasting changes. Remember, you're not aiming to create perfect art, but to express yourself authentically and grow personally. Approach your life as both a profound philosophical journey and an ongoing artistic masterpiece. Part 26. Nietzschean CBT, Challenging Thoughts and Creating Values. It explores the overlap between modern cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and Nietzschean psychology, especially in terms of how our thoughts impact our emotions. Traditional CBT is about correcting faulty thinking, but if you throw in a Nietzschean perspective, it's more about questioning the values and assumptions that those thoughts are built on. Instead of just fixing what's broken, this approach helps folks rethink how they understand their experiences, shifting the focus from merely correcting mistakes to actually creating new values. Standard CBT highlights various thinking errors like being overly black and white, catastrophizing, or taking things too personally, all of which stir up emotional trouble. These techniques are awesome because they help people think in more realistic, balanced ways. But when you add a Nietzschean twist, you're going deeper, asking things like, how did these faulty thinking patterns start? What beliefs are holding these thoughts together? How could adopting new values change the way we interpret the same situations? This different lens shows that many mental hurdles aren't just about incorrect thinking, but are tied to shaky, underlying value systems that might need a rethink or even a complete makeover. Picture someone who constantly battles perfectionism. While CBT might help them challenge their black and white thinking, a Nietzschean perspective digs into why they're hooked on being perfect. Perhaps they think their value is solely based on how well they perform, or they've got it in their head that making any mistake is a disaster, or they're convinced that getting others' approval is critical to their self-worth. By questioning these beliefs, they can craft entirely new value frameworks where being perfect isn't necessary anymore. They might lean towards valuing personal growth over sheer achievement, focusing on learning instead of just performing, or choosing self-acceptance over chasing external affirmation. This way of thinking pushes clients to become their own philosophers regarding their experiences. Instead of taking thoughts and feelings at face value, they dive into the belief systems fueling those thoughts and emotions. They'll ask themselves questions like, what belief do I need to have for this thought to make sense? Or, what values am I relying on when I feel this way? Along with, how might someone with different values view this situation? And, what new belief systems could actually serve me better? This kind of reflection often uncovers that a lot of emotional turmoil stems from old belief systems that just don't fit their current life situation or true self. By creating new belief systems, they're able to reshape how they feel deep down. The process involves both deconstructing and rebuilding. Initially, clients learn to identify and question the beliefs and values at the root of their troublesome thoughts and feelings. They delve into where these beliefs came from and whether they're still beneficial to their well-being. This often involves realizing how family, culture, and social influences have shaped their worldview in unhelpful ways. Once they navigate this, they move towards forming new values. This means testing out new systems that might align more closely with who they truly are and what they want now. The goal isn't to simply adopt someone else's values, but to consciously create a set that truly suits their individual needs and personality. So, imagine this. There are some practical ways to help folks get clear about what really matters to them. One way is through exercises where they figure out their most important values and check if their current mindset stacks up to those values. And there's also activities that put them in other people's shoes to see how someone with a totally different set of values might interpret the same scenario. Plus, by experimenting in the real world, they get a chance to test out these new value systems and see how they work out in practice. Getting into creative exercises is another cool method for people to reevaluate their experiences. Whether it's making art, penning down thoughts, or acting out scenarios, these approaches help open up new ways of understanding things. The goal is to nurture flexible thinking that fits various circumstances, all rooted in personally chosen values instead of default beliefs passed down from others. This kind of approach leads to profound changes, completely transforming how someone sees themselves and their world, moving past just symptom relief. In a Nietzschean version of CBT, thoughts are considered not just random happenings in the mind, but as deeper philosophical beliefs being reflected. By shifting these fundamental beliefs, people can change not only how they think, but also how they live their lives. This approach sees therapy not just as a fix-it job for what's broken, but as a creative process aimed at building a more meaningful existence. Through this way of doing things, clients get the power to actively shape their mental world instead of just rolling with their habitual thought patterns. The results are often deeper and longer lasting compared to traditional techniques, because this method gets to the heart of the psychological issues rather than just addressing the surface symptoms. It's not just about handing out coping strategies, it's about teaching people how to craft lives full of meaning. Part 27. Nietzsche had an interesting viewpoint on dealing with really tough experiences. He believed that going through hardships isn't just something to get over. It can actually make us tougher. His famous line, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger," wasn't about saying trauma is no big deal or encouraging anyone to go looking for trouble. What he meant was, if you face hardships in the right way, they can help you become more resilient and grow as a person. Nowadays, research supports this idea, showing that people can actually develop and improve themselves after going through traumatic events. When trauma hits, it can seriously shake up our sense of safety and throw us for a loop when it comes to understanding our place in the world. It messes with our identity and can make us feel like we've lost control over our lives. It's a tough blow, and definitely not something to ignore. Nietzsche saw that after going through all that, the process of putting your life back together can lead to a version of yourself that's stronger and more true to who you really are. But achieving this doesn't just happen automatically. It often requires a lot of hard work and sometimes professional assistance. When folks manage to get through tough times, they often reflect and, despite the pain, wouldn't want to wipe away what happened because it played a big part in shaping who they've become. The path to growing after dealing with trauma usually involves a few steps. First, it's crucial to acknowledge and face the trauma head-on, recognizing how serious it is rather than trying to quickly make sense of it or gloss over it. People need space to grieve their losses and come to terms with their new situation. Slowly, they need to start feeling safe and stable again in their day-to-day lives, which might require changing their environment or relationships to facilitate healing. Eventually, finding personal meaning in what happened can turn the experience from a purely destructive one to something that fuels growth. This is a highly personal journey that shouldn't be rushed. Many find meaning by helping others with similar experiences, discovering hidden strengths, appreciating life and their relationships more deeply, or developing new philosophical insights. But it's crucial that this meaning comes from the individual, not from others pushing ideas onto them. Trying to spin the trauma positively too soon can actually stunt the healing process. It's important to confront the pain before celebrating the growth that comes from it. Today, research shows that a lot of people who survive trauma also go through something called post-traumatic growth. They often talk about a newfound love for life, stronger connections with others, discovering personal strengths they didn't know they had, spiritual growth, and seeing new opportunities for their future. However, it's important to note that this growth doesn't erase ongoing challenges from the trauma. It exists alongside them. The goal isn't to obliterate the trauma's effects completely, but to integrate them as part of personal development rather than letting trauma take center stage. Therapies designed around post-traumatic growth aim to help people see and use the strengths they've developed from facing adversity. This might involve recognizing new empathy, deeper feelings, spiritual insights, or courage, all coming from their journey through trauma. Therapists try to help clients move from thinking of themselves as victims to seeing themselves as survivors, focusing on their strength and resilience rather than just their wounds. This approach acknowledges the impact of trauma, but places it within the larger context of human growth and adjustment. The aim here is to realize that tough experiences can leave you stronger rather than permanently harmed. It's about identifying how challenges have contributed to your growth, made you wiser, or shaped your character. Think about questions like this. What new abilities have I discovered in myself that I might not have learned otherwise? How have my experiences expanded my understanding of myself or those around me? What would I say to someone facing a similar challenge? How can I apply what I've learned to help others or make a meaningful impact? Remember, acknowledging growth isn't about being grateful for the tough times or acting like they were good for you. It's about recognizing that people have an amazing capacity to transform even the toughest situations into sources of strength and insight. Part 28. Nietzsche had a pretty unusual way of thinking about what it means to be successful or to accomplish great things, which stands in stark contrast to today's success-driven society. Nowadays, success is often about getting recognized, climbing the social ranks, or piling up wealth. But Nietzsche saw things differently. He focused on mastering yourself and being true to who you really are deep down. He believed real excellence was all about becoming the person you're meant to be, rather than fitting into someone else's idea of who you should be. His take offers a refreshing approach to achieving meaningful goals, steering away from constantly chasing approval or comparing yourself to others. For Nietzsche, true greatness comes from developing your unique talents and potential, rather than conforming to society's definition of success. This means really understanding your passions, values, and strengths. It's about diving into things that genuinely excite and challenge you, not just those that bring admiration or financial gain. Someone who truly embodies excellence is driven by an inner desire to perfect their skills and stay true to their authentic self. They measure their success by their own growth and happiness, not by comparing themselves to others or seeking societal approval. This mindset fosters lasting motivation, as it doesn't depend on external validation or situations. Achieving greatness means constantly pushing beyond what's comfortable or familiar, a concept Nietzsche called self-overcoming. It's about breaking your own limits and welcoming discomfort to expand your abilities. It's seeing challenges and setbacks not as threats, but as opportunities to grow. Those who pursue excellence embrace a growth mindset, believing skills can be developed with effort rather than being fixed traits. They learn to accept failure and uncertainty as essential parts of the journey. This builds resilience, allowing them to continue moving forward even when things get tough, without losing motivation or self-belief. Nietzsche spoke about two ways people pursue success: reactive and creative. Reactive achievement revolves around proving yourself by winning or compensating for feelings of inadequacy. This often leads to obsession with perfection, constant comparisons, and a fear of failure. On the other hand, creative achievement focuses on expressing your uniqueness and developing your potential, independent of others' opinions. This path leads to genuine inner satisfaction and tends to be more enduring. Interestingly, those who are creatively motivated often end up achieving more outward success, almost as a bonus for engaging deeply with their work. Modern research supports Nietzsche's ideas. Studies show that intrinsic motivation, or being driven by internal desires, leads to better performance and more fulfillment than extrinsic motivation, which comes from outside sources. Research on flow states shows people perform best when they're fully immersed in tasks that match their skills yet challenge them. Studies on expertise development reveal that mastery comes from deliberate practice over time, not just talent or effort. Research on well-being indicates that individuals pursuing personally meaningful goals feel more satisfied with life than those following externally imposed goals. All of this evidence echoes Nietzsche's belief in valuing authentic self-development over mere external achievements. Going after greatness takes what Nietzsche called a gutsy brain. You've got to be bold enough to question the usual, try out fresh ideas, and be cool with failing if it means something truly new and amazing might just happen. People on this path often have to swim against the tide to really boost their own special gifts. This means being okay with being misunderstood, taking the heat, or even dealing with rejection from folks who don't get what makes your aim for excellence tick. First, it's super important to trust your own choices and listen to your instincts, even if nobody else is vibing with your plan. You have to stay loyal to your dreams, even if the people around you aren't feeling it yet. Practically speaking, it's all about diving deep into what gets you fired up, what matters in your world, and what you naturally excel at, then arranging your life to focus on these passions. Ask yourself, what do I find naturally thrilling and satisfying? What would I continue doing even if there's no reward at the end? What unique mark can I leave behind that's a real reflection of me? How can I keep pushing myself to grow without forgetting what I'm all about? It's key to aim for being the best in areas you truly care about, instead of chasing achievements just to wow others. Track your success based on your own progress and joy, not by stacking yourself up against others or following external benchmarks. Remember, real excellence is more about the lifelong adventure of self-improvement than just a finish line to cross. Part 29. Balancing society's influence with staying true to yourself. Nietzsche really hit the nail on the head when he talked about the tension between following society's rules and being true to who you really are. From the start, we're molded by family, culture, school, and the systems we live in. They all tell us what's right, what's wrong, and how to behave. Sure, these guidelines help us get along with others and keep traditions going, but they can also suppress our individuality and limit what we can accomplish. Understanding this push and pull helps us figure out why some psychological problems pop up and how we can be ourselves without losing our connection to the community around us. From a young age, we're subtly influenced by social conditioning. We learn what earns us a gold star or gets us in trouble, which emotions are acceptable, and which ideas are encouraged or shut down. We often mistake these lessons for universal truths when they're just cultural preferences. By the time we reach adulthood, most people are so deeply influenced by these societal norms that it impacts how they see the world without them even realizing it. They confuse society's expectations with their own desires and end up living a life that satisfies everyone else but themselves, hiding their true self in the process. When life throws major changes our way, that's when the clash between society's influence and our true self often feels the most intense. People might start wondering if the path they're on really matches up with their true desires. They might realize they're ticking boxes set by society instead of chasing their own dreams. While confronting this can be unsettling, it questions the sincerity of their past choices. It can also be incredibly freeing. This insight offers a chance for a more authentic life for those willing to rethink and maybe reshape their ingrained beliefs. It's about sorting through what society has taught us, keeping the things that help us, and letting go of the rest. Some learned behaviors are useful and worth retaining, while others should be left behind. Finding the right balance between keeping it real and fitting in with society isn't easy. Going too far against societal norms can make you feel isolated or rebellious in an unproductive way. On the other hand, completely blending in makes you lose sight of your own potential. The trick is figuring out what societal expectations to embrace and which ones to challenge, all based on your true needs and values. This means taking control, not just going with the flow or tossing everything out, and becoming the thoughtful architect of your own identity rather than a puppet of social expectations. Modern psychology talks about this struggle with terms like the false self versus the true self, external versus internal control, and conforming versus charting your own course. Research shows that people who live in tune with themselves are generally happier and more content than those who live their lives according to societal pressures. Studies on identity development highlight that people who are well-adjusted typically go through phases of accepting, questioning, and carefully integrating social influences rather than blindly absorbing everything. When it comes to innovation and creativity, stepping away from conventional wisdom is often essential. Therapy often aims to help people differentiate between their true desires and what they think they should want, providing a safe space to explore aspects of themselves that might not fit the usual mold. Folks are being nudged to dig into the roots of their beliefs and behaviors, figuring out what truly makes sense to them and what they've simply borrowed from the folks around them. People try to show their true colors in appropriate situations while figuring out how to navigate the expectations society throws at them. It's not about turning into a total maverick. Instead, it's about choosing wisely when to go with the flow and when to stand out. This way of thinking brings a kind of mental freedom that actually strengthens social connections instead of tearing them apart. To really embrace who you are, take a regular pause to ask yourself if your thoughts and feelings are honestly yours, or if they're just shaped by what you think you should feel. Think about whether you truly like doing something, or if you just feel obligated, or whether a goal matters to you personally, or if it's just something others expect you to pursue. Imagine what you would do differently if you weren't worried about stepping on people's toes. Try sharing your genuine thoughts and emotions with trusted folks to get a sense of how it feels. Notice when you're just acting the part versus when you're being your true self. Gradually widen the scope of situations where you feel at ease being yourself, while also learning how to blend in when it's necessary. Remember, staying true to yourself doesn't mean shutting out every social influence. It's about consciously choosing which ones to let in. Part 30. Becoming your authentic self, the ultimate aim in therapy. At the core of Nietzsche's take on psychology and therapy is the quest to become your authentic self. But don't get it twisted. This isn't about finding some buried treasure within you. It's about shaping your identity through conscious decisions and commitment. It's about pulling all of who you are together, shattering those limiting beliefs, and letting your unique potential shine through. Although it's not an easy road, it could be the most fulfilling journey you'll ever embark on, because it flips you from merely drifting through life to actively creating meaning and value. To discover your true self, you'll have to move through several phases. First, realize you're not a fixed set of characteristics, but a work in progress. This shift means going from searching for who you are to actively crafting yourself through decisions and actions. Then, take a good hard look at your present behaviors to differentiate what is genuinely you from what's simply absorbed from others. This means doing the difficult task of peeling away the layers of who you've been told to be to reveal the real you underneath. You'll also need to gather the courage to stay true to yourself, even when it bucks social norms or conflicts with your family's expectations. It's equally important to embrace every part of your personality, including those you'd prefer to forget or hide. This involves acknowledging your shadowy sides, accepting your contradictions, and learning how to express the full spectrum of who you are appropriately. Plus, it's about defining your values and finding meaning from within, instead of adopting them from outside influences. This involves nurturing an internal compass to steer through life's complexities, independently of constant external approval. And let's get this straight. It's not a one-and-done task, but a lifelong journey. You've got to remain open to change while staying anchored to who you are at the core. Nietzsche mentioned the need for intellectual courage and emotional strength. Intellectual courage means questioning everything you think you know about yourself and the world, even if it's uncomfortable. It's about forming your own opinions rather than clinging to what's popular or traditional. Emotional strength involves handling the anxiety and loneliness that often come with living authentically. It means staying on track even when those around you don't understand or support your decisions. Both qualities strengthen through practice and experience, not just through a mental decision. Therapy provides a training ground for expressing your authentic self. Effective therapy lets clients air thoughts and feelings they typically keep hidden. They test out different ways of being and receive feedback on how these new approaches feel and function. They practice setting boundaries, voicing their needs, and standing their ground in a secure setting. Here, the therapist acknowledges all parts of the client's humanity, even those parts society often rejects, offering a healing experience that shows genuine connection is possible. Ultimately, living as your authentic self is about embracing the unknown, Authentic people don't rely on others to dictate their lives. They blaze their own trail. This requires making significant choices without guarantees and owning the consequences of those choices. Living authentically often means navigating feelings of solitude, as not everyone will understand or appreciate your distinct style. Yet, living genuinely leads to a profound sense of fulfillment when you share your unique gifts with the world. Those who have this figured out often feel truly alive and purposeful. It's a feeling that blending in or seeking applause from others just can't provide. The real test of authenticity is asking yourself if you'd choose to live your life the same way all over again. This concept, inspired by Nietzsche, poses the question of whether you can wholeheartedly accept the journey of your life because it's made you who you are today. It's not about every experience being flawless or free from regret, but rather recognizing that every single event has contributed to your personal development. When you can truly accept your life in its entirety, with all its highs and lows, you've achieved real authenticity. You've moved from being influenced by unseen forces to taking an active role in shaping your own future. This is the essence of Nietzsche's philosophy and the goal of therapy: to become a free spirit who crafts their own purpose, expresses their true self, maintains deep connections with others, and keeps evolving.